Hello everybody, I'd like to ask you to do me a favour, if you'd be so kind, is to head over to Kickstarter and support a project that is very dear to me and lots of Commodore fans, I'm sure, around the world. And that is the new book by Mr. David Pleasance. He was the CEO of Commodore UK and was involved throughout the last 12 years of Commodore's being, if you will. He was there and worked his way up from sales, marketing, up to CEO. He managed to make Commodore UK profitable when the parent company was on the brink of collapse, and managed to keep Commodore UK in profit and functioning when Commodore America had collapsed and gone into bankruptcy. So he knows his stuff, and he's just written a no holds barred tale of what went off in Commodore, and I think it's time the truth was out there. A lot of people want to know what went on at Commodore, why a billion-dollar company should collapse so quickly, and why a beloved company should disappear forever. Questions need to be answered. So if you will, please support David's Kickstarter. He's a very nice guy, I've met him a few times. He lives over here in the UK. Thoroughly nice guy, and his book should be a very interesting read. Please buy it, please support him, go to Kickstarter. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name's Alistair Brimble and I create the music and sound for video games. In my early days I worked on many Commodore Amiga video games such as the early Team 17 and Codemasters titles. The Amiga was a format very close to my heart. It's what I learned to compose music on. And one of the people who made this possible was David Pleasance, the former managing director and public face of Commodore. I've met David a couple of times and he's one of the most genuine and kind people you will ever meet. And now he wants to write a book all about his time at Commodore. So please back this Kickstarter so that David can tell us all the truth about the rise and fall of the Amiga and set history straight.
Hi there. When we were planning the filming of From Bedrooms to Billions, the Amiga years, one of the first people that Nicola and I planned to have in the film was David Pleasance, because as far as we were concerned, he was Mr. Commodore. He's been there, seen it, done everything. And when he contacted us and said that he's planning to do a book, I mean, we'd be the first people to buy the book. I mean, it's a really fantastic thing. So from our point of view, please back his campaign, because we'd love to see this book get made. And David is a really, really lovely person that has got so many great stories and anecdotes. It would just be a brilliant read, and it's just another piece of Commodore history that just needs to be told. So please back David Pleasance's campaign. Nicola, by the way, is holding the camera, so we are usually all seen together, but she is right behind there now anyway. So please back his campaign, and let's get him to his target. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Bill Winters, also known as Amiga Bill. I founded the Westchester Amiga User Group back in 1988. And believe it or not, we still meet on the first Thursday of every month to this day. I also have an Amiga YouTube channel called The Guru Meditation that I do with my old friend Anthony Becker. Now, the best part about going to user group meetings, having a YouTube channel, and being active on social media are the people that you meet. And David is one of those people. I've had the pleasure of working with David on several projects now and getting to know him quite well. And let me tell you, he has some amazing stories about his time at Commodore. He's extremely smart, passionate, and an amazing businessman. I mean, Commodore UK was still turning a profit under his command while Commodore International was going bankrupt. I mean, he's absolutely brilliant. David worked at Commodore for over a decade, holding several high positions at Commodore branches all over the world. And that's what's going to make this book so unique and so special. This is not an outside journalist telling the story through other people. This is someone on the inside who is intimately involved with the ins and outs of the company. I mean, David has told me stories I had never heard before, and he was just scratching the surface of what he had. It's absolutely incredible. I cannot wait to hear the rest of his stories. I mean, I'm so excited about this book, I'm going to back it 2 times, maybe even 3 times.
Hi, my name is Jarlath, and I run the Amiga events here in Ireland. The Commodore and Amiga computers are so influential in our lives, and for many of us, they even influenced our career paths to one degree or another. So this book is going to capture the history of that company that brought all of this to us. But what has me most excited about this is, of course, the man who's writing it, David Pleasance. I was lucky enough to meet David at our recent event in Ireland, and I know he's going to follow through on his commitment to bring forward new information and answer questions that remain unanswered even today in 2017. So please send a strong signal and back this Kickstarter today.
Hello, my name is Trevor Dickinson, the co-founder of Aeon Technology. We are the designers of the very cool Amiga 1 X1000, the Amiga 1 X5000, and the new Amiga 1 A1222, which is currently undergoing beta test. We also create a lot of exciting and new software, at least I think it is, for Amiga 1 and Amiga 1 compatible next generation computers. My Amiga story started with Commodore way back in 1978. I just promoted to a new job, looking after the hardware and software team. What did I know about computers? So I looked at the computers at the time. There weren't many, and I chose a Commodore PET 4032 over an Apple II. So there you go. My Amiga story started with Commodore PETs. The Commodore PET became a Commodore 64. I just had to play international soccer. The 64 became a 128, then a 128D, before I moved to the US, and a 128D was destroyed in a lightning strike. So an act of God got me onto Amigas, and my first Amiga was an Amiga 2000, 3000, 4000, and so on. Most of my Commodore machines were purchased from Commodore UK, so it gives me great pleasure to do a video for David Pleasance, who was the Joint Managing Director of Commodore UK, and I'm really looking forward to his expose of the time he was at Commodore, the rise, the fall, the good, the bad, and I really want to hear the stories behind the Commodore bankruptcy and his and Colin Proudfoot's attempt, his Joint Managing Director, attempt to purchase the Amiga assets. So I'm really looking forward to this book, and I want to support it. I will get behind the Kickstarter project, and I hope you do too.
Hey guys, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dan Wood. For those that do, you may recognise me from YouTube or the Retro Hour podcast. And I've been a lifelong fan of Commodore ever since I got my first ever home computer at just 7 years old, which was a Commodore Plus 4. And you know, for years after that, Commodore was the only brand that we would have in our house, through the C64, various Amigas and stuff like, you know, CD-TV and CD32. And really, Commodore has been a company that's had such a big influence in my life. I think, you know, many people are the same, who grew up using those machines and today maybe work in the creative industries or media. Pretty much all of the skills that I use in my day-to-day career, I learned on those Commodore computers. Be that, you know, video production, titling, audio and music production, graphics, animation, desktop publishing, learning the fundamentals of layout. Everything I do in my day-to-day career started on those formative years on those Commodore machines. So it's not an exaggeration for me to say that without Commodore, I would not be the person that I am today. And I've got Commodore to thank for so much in my life. Which is why I think the time has come that we, the Commodore and Amiga fans, finally find out the real story about what happened to this legendary computer company that touched so many of our lives in various ways. And you remember, you know, if you were like me, growing up here in Britain in the late 80s and early 90s, in those, you know, heady days of personal computers when it was all so exciting, David Pleasance was the face of Commodore. He was a guy that got these machines, you know, the Batman pack, the Cartoon Classics pack. He got those into our homes. And also, he was the guy that would answer our questions in magazines. We all remember reading David Pleasance's column in Amiga format, you know, and it was unheard of at the time that a managing director would put himself out there and say, look guys, you the fans write in, I will answer anything you want to ask me. And you know, he did as well, didn't he? He was so open and honest, he'd tell the users everything. Something I imagine probably annoyed a few of the upper echelons of Commodore international management, but that's David. He's always wore his heart on his sleeve, and he's always been open and honest, you know, and told the users exactly how it is. And I know that's because he admired and also had a deep respect for, you know, the fans of the Commodore and Amiga machines, which is why even now, 2 decades on, David still travels the world now and goes to Commodore and Amiga user group meetings and likes to meet the fans face to face. And that was where I first met David about 2 years ago at the Amiga 30 event in Amsterdam. And ever since then, we've kept, you know, in very close contact. And I'm proud to, you know, really an honour to regard David as one of my close personal friends today. And, you know, I've had lots of conversations with David over the years, and he's got so many incredible stories. And I've been one of the guys that's been pushing David to write this book for a few years now, and I'm so pleased he's finally going to do it and get those stories out there. And I'm proud to say that he's asked me to be involved in this Kickstarter as well. So if you are one of the premium backers and you get hold of the Blu-ray disc, you will be treated to a 1-hour exclusive interview that I host with David, and you're going to hear stories that will blow your mind. And there are stories just like that in the book as well. So many that you will not have heard before. I can't give away any spoilers really, but let me just say, wait until you hear the story about Mehdi Ali's son, who came to Commodore on work experience when he was a student. They left him with a bit of a lasting impression, something he's probably never forgotten to this day. I can't reveal any more, you'll have to back the Kickstarter to find out, but it is about time the true story of Commodore was told. We deserve it, the fans of Commodore and the Amiga, and David is the man to tell that story. So please, show your support and back the Kickstarter. Thank you.
I absolutely adore the Commodore Amiga, and for me, David Pleasance is one of the, if not the main guy behind the machine's success, especially in the UK and parts of Europe, and I would absolutely love to get his inside scoop of the Commodore Amiga story.
Hello there, my name's Adam Spring, and I'm here to support and talk to you about David Pleasance's intended book for Kickstarter. So I think you should support David because he's not only a great storyteller and a great people person, but he's also somebody that has a gateway to facts that would otherwise be overlooked. Commodore was often perceived as the third company to Apple and Microsoft, or a company that was clamoring for that, but really it was a lot more than that. It had access to technologies and intellectual properties which were ahead of their time, and David was at the coalface of that. And at the same time, from a human interest point of view, he also had access to a series of personalities, well, let's just say they were interesting. Anyway, if you support the book, you're not only supporting David and you're not only getting, a great publication, you're also getting a series of other authors in there as well. And I'll leave David to talk to you about that. For me, to give you a personal note on my journey with Commodore, like so many of my generation coming out of Britain, it was the gateway to where I am now with technology. My first computer was the Commodore 64, and when the Commodore 64 was around, because it lasted a lot longer in the UK. It was around for about 10 years extra to other places like the US. And when I had my Commodore 64, a big thing on the scene was the Amiga 500 computer in gaming. And I remember looking at that, I think it was around about 9-10 years old maybe, and thinking, okay, this Amiga 500 feels nothing like this Commodore 64 that I've got, yet it's owned by the same company. And years later, when I look back on it, and now I work with high-end technologies of a variety of things, it was really the starting point for my gut instinct with technology, more specifically technology trends and technology development. So I'm one of many stories you will probably hear throughout this Kickstarter of the Commodore brand or the Commodore company influencing people's stories with technology.
I have so many great memories associated with the Commodore Amiga. I mean, not just of the games, as brilliant as they are, the likes of Sensi, Cannon Fodder, Syndicate, Theme Park and all that, but just of that experience of properly using the computer for the first time at a time when, you pretty much only used PCs in schools. Whether it was just silly things like screwing around in Wordsworth or making the speech function say rude words and messing about with Shell even though I had no clue what I was doing with it most of the time. Just all silly things like that, learning how to use a computer that way. It was just such a great machine for that. So many brilliant little things you could do with it. I think the story of Commodore in the UK is something that a lot of people are going to be really interested in hearing about, because we know so much about the story of Commodore in its home. We know of the likes of Jack Tramiel and all that, but we don't know a lot about the story of Commodore in essentially its adopted home, and how completely different it was to how things ended up going down in the States. So I think that there's a lot of different ground to cover there, and it'll be a nice refreshing look at one of the greatest computers of all time.
Hi, it's Robbie from the Retro Hour podcast, and back in the 90s I used to be the absolute biggest Amiga fan. Like Commodore, they were a massive company. They were a worldwide, global brand. And, you know, they'd just beaten Atari. Atari was going down the pan, so Amiga was seeming to get really popular throughout Europe. It still had massive support. They just introduced the world's first 32-bit CD system, the Amiga CD32. And this could have been a massive success, you know. It could have done what the PlayStation did. So what happened? Why did this all collapse? Why did this massive company just destroy itself? Well, hopefully, David will tell you all the facts.